If you have never read anything about this series of unfortunate events, before you listen to anything else, know this. Violet, Klaus, and Sunny Baudelaire have had a miserable life. All of these stories, these three children are unhappy and wretched. They will most likely fill you with despair. So tonight, we'll be talking about the history of the books, the three siblings, and a couple of conspiracy theories, thanks to Reddit users and a bunch of other people, about the series of unfortunate events. So keep it here on 90.1 KSYM with your host, me, MeaMea. The author of the series, Daniel Handler, used the pseudonym Lemony Snicket. He decided to write a children's story, and HarperCollins was interested in him writing a children's story. He thought it was a bad idea at first, but then they challenged him to write a book that he wanted to read when he was 10. He retooled a manuscript that he had for a mock gothic book for adults, and it became a story of children growing through all these terrible things. The first book was released September 30th, 1999. It's rarely mentioned in the book, but it is totally canon that the Baudelaires are Jewish. The setting seems to be an alternate, timeless world with similarities of the 19th century and the early 1930s. Even still, computers are a thing in this series, along with scientific knowledge that wasn't known until the late 20th century. And we'll explain why I think that is in just a little while, but right now we're going to be talking about Violet, Klaus, and Sunny right after this break. Violet, the eldest of the orphans, is an inventor. Her skills have saved her and her siblings countless of times, and she usually ties up her hair with a ribbon to keep her hair out of her eyes to think. Something that I do frequently, too. She's 14 when the series starts and turns 16 at the end of this series. At age 18, she would be able to legally adopt her two younger siblings and inherit the fortune her family had left behind. Klaus is the middle child of the orphans. He's the bookish one out of all three of them. He loves to read and study. Klaus thrives off of reading and would want no more than a good book, a comfy chair, and the warm glow of a reading lamp. In the beginning of the series, he's 12, and by the end of the series, he's roughly 15. Sunny is the youngest of the orphans, and she is at first the family biter. She crawls and bites with her sharp teeth, and she later becomes the cook. She feeds them and has a strong knowledge of the things that they eat. Although her age is known as baby or the youngest, she is 3 years old by the time the last book takes place. Tonight we're talking all about a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. Currently we're discussing possible theories of the series. At the end of the series you feel as if everything is answered, but you're left feeling confused about certain aspects. Lemony Snicket left us clues behind to let us know what the series is really about, and I think Snicket has tipped his hand a little too much when it comes to this theory. First, when I was reading these books, I was very young and I was so confused that the timeline never seemed to match up. I knew that they were maybe in the late 30s, but the author and several characters talk about people who had been dead for centuries. For example, Snicket talks about knowing William Congreve, an English playwright who died in January of 1729. He also talks about William Shakespeare as a close associate, and there are thousands of more clues. Their Uncle Monty claims that he's been studying snakes for over 40 years, and the list goes on and on and on. My point is that this theory states that almost every adult in a series of unfortunate events is immortal, almost being the key word. This theory comes from Dante on ASOUE Pro Boards back in September of 2014. This falls in line with our next topic, coming right up after this. Throughout the series, all the children seem to know that their parents were a part of some secret society named VFD. They view it as the secret club that knows everything, kind of like the Illuminati. The children think that as soon as they get there, they will be safe, and that is the safest place they could be. All these good adults are part of this club, and so they struggle to look for it. Then they have to find it. So when they finally do get to their destination, all these other adult members of VFD, they realize that what we all realize when we grow up. All the other adults that we looked up to are just as lost, confused, scared, and as freaked out as we are. Adults just have a different way of hiding it. Because their parents die and the fact that they have this evil man tracking them wherever they go, these kids have to grow up earlier than planned. They have to get a job and stay at not so great places. They have to deal with their death after death after death of their friends and their family. They break the law somehow and they're forced to run away. This whole book series is all about the author Snicket. He's telling us that no matter if you're an adult or a child, a series of unfortunate events will always come into your life. And it's up to you how you handle them, but know that in the end, it's not going to be perfect. Special thank you to Reddit users Overthink1 and Madame Defarge 91 for this theory. Up next, we gotta wrap it up after this, so keep it here on 90.1 KSYM. I remember reading these books when I was growing up and falling in love with the story rather than the characters. I felt comfort in the orphans and I identified with them, though. I also read one of the books within 20 minutes, so there's that. Tonight we talked all about a series of unfortunate events. We went over the history of the books and a little bit of the settings. Next, we talked about the siblings Violet, the inventor, Klaus, the bookish fellow, and Sonny, the biter. We then had arousing discussions about the whole story and even what it means. Couple housekeeping announcements. The Scobie Planetarium and I, we are always growing, changing, expanding, and we know you have thousands of questions about space. So please, I would like you guys to email them to psaksym@hotmail.com or stop by the Scobie Education Center and drop off your question there. Until then, next week, my flowers, stay geeky.